Lottery tickets to hentai, please.
Hello and welcome back to the Blue Banana Podcast, whether Manu is here or not. Today, we're here to talk about a thing. With me is the king of things, Manu. Hello, Manu. Say hi.
I do like things, yes.
You don't just like them, you love them. You are the thinking.
Things, yes. How you doing, mate?
Like Australian accents.
He's thinking, he's not thinking.
I see what you did there. And with Manu is the king of the only thing that Manu is not the king of, which is breaking her foot. It is Sophie. Broken limb Sophie. How are you?
My bones are actually all intact today, thank you very much, so I deserve a new title.
Today?
Yes, I deserve a new title today.
You should have like a McDonald's sign behind you, like 3 days since last broken foot or something.
As we've established, as you established like 5 minutes ago, Liam, Sophie is very soft, so apparently that goes for her bones too.
That's great, out of context.
I have no bones, I'm all cartilage.
Or cartilage, an aquatic creature.
I am actually very flexible.
Is that very flexible?
Yeah, I can't do that shit.
I mean, I can't do it as far as you can, apparently.
I can go into a back bend from standing up as well, but I won't do it today because I'll probably break another bone doing that.
Yeah, usually I can do it, but I won't do it today.
Liam's actually seen me do it. I have shown Liam my party trick.
I have. As soon as you said you could do it, I was like, all right, now.
That was still a couple years ago, and the last time I did it, I felt a little bit of a crack in my back, and I've been too scared to do it since. My age is catching up with me.
In other words, you could do it. You can't really do it. You just could do it.
Well, we don't know until I'll try out, but I will do it when we hit 100,000 subscribers.
And then the podcast will promptly go on hiatus again to Broken Back Sophie. Broke Back Sophie. That's what we would call you.
Sounds like a good TV show.
Or a film, for example. Manu, you like films. Sophie, you like films. The three of us have all not recently for Manu, most of us have seen the same film now. Sophie and I very recently. Manu, you've been going on about it on the podcast, I believe, for quite some time. A certain Suzume no Tojimaru.
When did it release? I think in November in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely before Christmas.
I'm pretty sure it was before we went on hiatus as well.
So it must be probably like October.
might be. It's been a while.
So about 6, maybe 7 months ago, Australia has finally caught up, as per usual, and we're going to talk about it, whether you like it or not.
No, I like it.
But first, you have no choice, Manu.
After talking about it for 6 months, he decides he no longer wants to talk about it.
You know what, guys? I'm
actually,
over it
I'm
now.
good now. I'm over it. I'm like, last week, I was kind of like thinking, I was like, nope, not anymore. I'm over it.
Yeah, the moment's passed.
Anyways, what do you guys think about it?
But before we go into that, I'm not assuming that everyone has seen this or even knows what the hell we're talking about. Just so that we're clear, Suzume no Tojimaru is a film.
Tojimari.
That film was written and directed by Makoto Shinkai. That is a name you might be unaware of, but he knows your name, which is the film that he made in 2016. And I believe that became the 4th highest grossing film of all time in Japan. And in case you're wondering what beat it, Spirited Away, Titanic, and Frozen. This is a bit of a big deal. I don't want to say sequel, but like a next installment from a very prominent director.
Like, in case you don't have anything in mind, it's the man who's basically famous for making really the most beautiful looking anime.
The modern day Miyazaki.
All of the very postcard looking shots.
Yes, everything is like very realistically depicted, like real life sceneries. Yeah.
And in addition to scenery, it is the story of a 17-year-old high school student who has to stop a series of world-ending earthquakes by catching a cat with a chair.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, how was the cinema full? Like, did you guys watch it on opening day?
We didn't watch it on opening day.
I don't think it was full, but it was pretty packed.
I purposely chose a cinema that wasn't very full.
So it's like, wait, Liam, I know this really nasty place where no one goes.
No, quite the opposite.
Sophie dragged me all the way out to Campbelltown. I was like,
It's just like a projector somewhere in the outer back.
All our audience in Campbelltown are going to be very offended.
They don't exist.
Au contraire, I actually went to find a nice cinema because in my old age, I am no longer able to go and watch a film that doesn't have recliner seats. If I have to go through a film and it's just standard seats, I get super uncomfortable and I'm already very fidgety as it is, so I have to find recliner seats. And so that is what I did because there were not that many cinemas that had a lot of space where we wouldn't be surrounded by too many other people with also recliner seats.
You actually ended up booking us more or less a private box, which is how it
Yes,
ended
we
up.
did actually. Yeah. We ended up in this little corner where I said we could have done the hanky panky if we wanted to.
Yeah, Sophie literally used the words hanky panky like my grandmother would have 50, 60 years ago.
What did I tell you? I said in my old age.
Yeah.
And it works. It got me going like that.
I was like,
Forget
all
the
right, let's
film.
do the hanky panky.
Speak to me like your grandma.
Ugh. 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 I will say that Sophie's choice in seating did come back to bite her because of our private box situation. It meant that there was this like slight balcony in front of us, which was blocking part of the screen for the height challenged of us.
Yeah, so if I was leaning back into my seat, which is how I wanted to enjoy the film, I realized I was stepping off the mic, so I don't know if people heard that. But if I was leaning back into the seat, which is how I wanted to enjoy the film, the ledge covered like the bottom, I don't know, like 10 centimeters or so of the screen, but that also happened to be where the subtitles are placed. So I had to sit in a very particular way so I could still lean, but also read the subtitles. At one point, I was just reading half the subtitles and just making my brain figure out what those words were.
Sophie watched a different movie than Liam.
I'm interested to hear about the film that you saw.
Like, I'm curious if I missed anything because I did, of course, watch it. Like, there's no English subtitles for Japanese films in Japan. So I did watch it in the original, and I was like I'm at the level where I'm watching Japanese stuff fairly comfortable, but nonetheless, with like a lot of action and loud music and in a cinema setting, I would not be surprised if there's like dialogue that went past me. But overall, like, what was your overall impression? I can maybe give you like a little bit of background and like on how it was received in Japan. I'm
Yeah,
not
go for
sure.
it.
I think I told you about it. I'm not sure if you remember, but it was actually quite controversial.
Earthquakes?
I think the spoiler warning is the moment you clicked on this video, but
Oh yeah, it's very difficult to talk about without saying anything.
the story kind of builds up where you have this like mythical creature released from a parallel dimension that's kind of like connected to
big
like
ol'
shrines
worm.
and so on and so forth. Yes. And they create earthquakes, and the story kind of builds towards the point where the main character, Suzume, returns back to the place where she was originally born, which is in Miyagi Prefecture, where the big tsunami hit in 2013. I think it was 11. Sorry.
I actually think that her child costume was based on a famous picture.
Not only that, there's a bunch of real life photos and like video footage that was just translated into anime. So there's this very famous shot of the boat that's like on top of the house. Like, that's a real life thing. And so I do know that for like some Japanese people that were kind of like, a lot of people were like who experienced the earthquake even down here in Tokyo because it shook so much, and the entire like news cycle, Fukushima melting down, tsunami coming, many people dying. Like, that was such a traumatizing event for so many people that the fact that it's deliberately not mentioned before the movie or until it kind of like reached that
No
climax.
trigger warning.
That's exactly what it is. There's like no trigger warning, and some Japanese people clearly got triggered where they kind of felt a little bit like, oh, you should have warned me that this is what this is about, and isn't it too early to talk about this? While many other people, including me, were like, I obviously haven't been here for that big earthquake, felt like it was a careful, like it's obviously a narrow path to navigate, but I felt like it really like hit its landing.
I guess if we were to equate it to something, maybe like making an animated film that's centered around 9/11, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
It's not centered around it, right?
No, it's a core tool that gets used.
It's the climax, but it's like that's the big reveal at the end, that she, like, the reason why she lives with her aunt and the reason why she like has been to that parallel dimension before and why she remembers so many things is because she experienced that and lost her parents during that like major earthquake / tsunami, which is only revealed kind of at the end as they travel through Japan towards her hometown without even her realizing that they're moving there, and then it kind of puzzles together at the end, which I thought was beautifully done, and I personally felt like it was a really carefully but nicely done processing of what happened. And I feel like it kind of took that traumatizing event for many Japanese people, which other than like a war or a 9/11 or something had nothing to do with people. It's just like forces of nature, and it kind of took that and translated that into a character or into like a creature that like embodied that evil, which I thought was really cool.
But also a character in Suzume who embodies that trauma and grief, because the entire film is basically an inner journey on the outside. It is Suzume working through her trauma, her grief, which like manifests itself in all of the chaos happening around her. And ultimately, it's just about her going, yep, I'm good now.
Yeah, it's
or
kind of
I
her
can move on
processing.
and I can, exactly, the processing, and I know how to deal with this.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, it's kind of interesting because you have like different storyline. Because I read the booklet that comes with the movie in Japan, and so like Makoto Shinkai kind
Didn't
of.
get one.
Where he kind of explains like his storytelling, which I thought was like, as someone who really likes storytelling from a YouTube perspective, also very interesting to always read that. But he kind of explains how he split. I don't remember if I can actually come up with all three, but he kind of deliberately put like 3 different stories in that movie, where one is kind of like the meta, which is like dealing with earthquakes and catastrophes and that 2011 earthquake. The second one is kind of like a classic coming of age, kind of like like growing up, dealing with your inner demons kind of story. I think the third one was the love story, but I'm not quite sure if that was what it was or if it was like something else that he specified there. But basically the idea is that you have like 3 layers of story going on. And I think it's really nice to see, like sometimes you can tell because it's done so nicely, but usually if you really enjoy a piece of media and it like really moves you to a certain level and you resonate with it, you can be sure that it's never by accident that someone tells a good story. It's always like people have sat down for a long time
rarely,
and really
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Especially in a cinematic sense.
Exactly. So it's really fascinating though to get like a little bit of a glimpse behind the scenes of how that story is created.
I dare say, Manu, I think you may have lost something in translation, because there was definitely a 4th story happening there. Underneath everything, there was a fun little isekai about my new life as a chair, which is absolutely... I have to say, that anthropomorphic chair, probably my favorite thing in the film. I love watching it run and like fall over, and the sound effects of the feet, it's like, it's so
And the
dope.
animation was just amazing. The way that the chair was brought to life, it actually felt like, you know, you're watching
It did.
a real human. You actually forget that it's a chair. And I'd actually say that extends to the entire film. You forget that you're watching an animated film, and it just feels like you're watching real people.
Film.
Like even the chair. So yeah, you're just watching a film, and it's just real people that you're watching. Like even with all the crazy supernatural shit going on, like with the worm and stuff, it just feels like a normal film.
Everything
Yeah.
is so humanized. It's so identifiable, even to a completely non-Japanese audience as well, which I think is a big thing, because the film is so rooted culturally in Japan as well as aesthetically. So I think it's really amazing that they were able to open a door and let us into that.
It's kind of, I mean, that's some, obviously, I'm not sure if either Studio Ghibli nor Makoto Shinkai would like to be compared with each other, if that would be a mutual compliment or not, but I think it's like something that both Ghibli and Makoto Shinkai like do a really good job approaching a story from that Japanese perspective through that Japanese lens, but the story is so universal that they tell that like anyone can watch it. And it's those types of stories, I would argue, that for people like me who really fell in love with Japan, not only being here, but before that, visually through anime or other movies. And I feel like that's a classic example where you just, with that beautiful animation, and it kind of has a really fantastic balance of shots that are just aesthetically pleasing, but I feel like it never feels like the shots are in there only to show off. It always kind of enhances the atmosphere of what you're supposed to be feeling right now. Yeah.
The way I almost describe this film, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but to me, this film functions as like a glorified tourism ad for Japan, perfectly integrated. You get to see all of these beautiful locations recreated on screen. You get to see the country, you get to see the city, you get to take a road trip throughout everything. And it's just one of those films that really makes me desperate to experience the country.
Yeah, and not just this one, right? Because that's a running theme throughout his work. It really likes to explore that duality between the city and the country, usually with greater focus on the country, I think.
Because that's where the discovery element is. You know, you got your small country girl,
Small
I guess
town girl,
usually
yeah.
high school girl. Yeah, discovering the big city and learning to love and accept herself.
Just a city boy. No, I would agree. So just for full disclosure, because I'm kind of biased, but like Your Name is, with Lord of the Rings, one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's a big call, Manu.
I think it's also influenced by like the context under which like I've seen that movie kind of, and it kind of like binds me also emotionally very much to Japan.
Did you see it in cinemas?
No. I watched
You were
it like
already
with,
in Japan at that time, right?
I had just left Japan, and I watched it with Japanese friends who came to visit me in Germany, and where I had kind of like fallen in love with the country, and wanted to come back at some point, and just seeing like the places that I've like fallen in love with when I was here for the first time, seeing that I feel like that kind of recognizing those in the movie
So
in Tokyo.
Your Name was a right time, right place to hit you straight in the feels.
Straight in the fields, exactly.
I would be interested in Sophie's opinion on this as someone who is a notorious Your Name hater, but also
That's true.
a non-Lord of the Ringsian as well.
that's
See, for me, I'm like, I cannot put Your Name above Lord of the Rings. It didn't hit me quite the same way it hit you. But Sophie, please do rank.
I'm going to say a completely different sort of disclaimer and say that, yes, I have said on previous episodes before that Your Name was something, I wouldn't say I hated it. I've never hated it. I just thought that it was overhyped.
I loathed it.
Tested it.
I want to murder your name.
It's too light to say that hated.
There is no word in English.
That can fully encapsulate the feelings, the entirely negative feelings I have about Your Name. No, that's not the case at all. But I didn't watch it in the cinema. I watched it after it had already come out and it was no longer in the cinemas. But my friend raved on about it so much and told me, like, similar to you, Manu, that best film that she's ever watched. It made her cry so much. And because of that, I had very high hopes going into it. And then watching it, I thought it was very beautiful and I enjoyed it, but I just thought that it was overhyped. And I will also say that I fell asleep, which isn't to say that it's boring.
You fell asleep in this one too.
I just have trouble staying awake through most films.
Through specifically Makoto Shinkai films.
No, not specifically
movies
Makoto
put me to
Shinkai.
I put them on every night as ASMR to get to sleep. I've seen the first 10 minutes of Your Name like hundreds of times.
I told you guys last week as well that the same thing happened for Lord of the Rings. I had to watch it over the span of like a week or so because I'd watch like 20 minutes, 30 minutes and it would put me to sleep. And it's not because they're boring. Like, I'm thoroughly invested and I'm really telling myself like, so stay up. Like, this is the peak of the action. And still my body just falls asleep. And it doesn't actually matter like what it is. I did fall asleep during Your Name. And this isn't going to help my argument. But after watching Suzume, I was so impressed that I decided that I should go back and give Your Name another try. So recently, I went to go watch Your Name again, and this time I was enjoying it even much more than I was enjoying Suzume, especially because I think I'm a bit older now, so I think I appreciate it differently. But I do have to say, I fell asleep again, and it wasn't because I was bored. It's just so beautiful. The music's going, I'm in bed, like I'm wrapped up in my blanket. It's just the perfect time to sleep. I hated it when I was in high school and the teacher would put on a movie for us to like take notes on because it was going to be our assessment or whatever. The way that I see it, as soon as a movie comes on and the lights go off, it's just nap time. My brain just goes, oh, ding, 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 it's nap time, Sophie. And that's all I will take away. That's on me, that's not on the film. But something that I was really surprised to find out is that Your Name wasn't Makoto Shinkai's first work. I had always thought that that was his first film, but he's actually been creating films since I think 1998.
Yeah.
And also, he's been working along the same lines of the same themes, exploring like Japan's beautiful nature, the idea of actually, get this, the first feature film that he released, that he created was The Place Promised in Our Early Days. And the synopsis is something like, set in an alternate story or set in an alternate history where the Soviet Union has occupied half of Japan. It follows two friends who have grown apart after one of their friend goes missing. But then, supernatural, fantastical crap starts to happen and this brings them back together and they start to find out that
familiar.
They need to find their missing friend. Exactly. After finding out that he's been working for so long and he's been creating films like this similar sort of like structure and these similar sort of storylines.
Garden of Words, I think, also by Makoto Shinkai.
Yeah. another very famous film, I think won a few awards. Fascinates me that he's been interested about this sort of story and about these themes for so long, and he keeps going back to it but finds new ways to tell the same story, but hits on like a few, like on a different emotion each time.
But also like continuing to like refine the gem that is the format of it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I find it really, just really cool that someone is so invested in that same story.
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying, Manu, about how people were saying it was too soon, because I think that tsunami happened, I think it was 2011. And he actually said that he wanted to explore that in Your Name as well. And so I guess you can sort of see that in the way that he plays around with the comets. So there are still natural disasters, but obviously it's fundamentally a different sort of natural disaster, so that it probably doesn't have that same sort of triggering effect.
And they're very
And I
aesthetically similar, the comet and the worm.
Yeah, like the comet, the shooting stars. Yeah, they did look very much the same. It's interesting to hear that people thought that it was too soon, whereas I think obviously the way Makoto Shinkai wanted to probably portray it was like sort of a respectful way of visiting like a trauma for Japan and, you know, exploring that in a beautiful way.
So what's better, Your Name or Lord of the Rings? I forgot what you said.
That's a good question.
I feel like you did the politician thing of starting to answer the question and then going on a 5-minute tangent and then just hoping that we would forget the question, but no, we have not.
I also like how Sophie's sometimes like, well, I will say like it's not all bad. I'm just saying like this and this is pretty bad, and also and then it's just over. Like the positive never comes.
I said many
You
positives.
basically just described it beautifully. It was, from your description, it is a perfect film.
That's what I'm saying. I've never hated it. I just thought it was overhyped the first time I watched it. I preferred going back to watch it after watching Suzume because I think the deeper elements of like deeper emotions, like going through the whole coming of age story, the family dynamics that were explored in Suzume.
I guess, yeah, you came of age between these two, really.
That is very true. I still had graduated high school when Your Name came out, so I was no longer the high school girl.
A high school graduate has not come of age.
We have to also talk about how at the beginning of both films, Makoto Shinkai has a young, I don't know, like 17-year-old girl, or an even younger girl in the case of Suzume, making very sexual noises.
Oh, yeah.
And then it being revealed to be something completely different.
That got a laugh out of us, yeah. The beginning with the child Suzume running through the grass, it started with just this, you couldn't see her, it's just like...
Yeah.
So I did not remember that. Interesting.
And it was like, what are we watching here?
I thought I had signed up to a different sort of anime film.
Hinky Binky, am I right?
3 tickets to hentai, please.
3 tickets.
We also would like to. I would like to do some hentai, please.
I look forward to Makoto Shinkai's hentai film. I think the vistas will look phenomenal.
Very aesthetic. A lot of close-ups.
We'll have another octopus that looks very much like the worm or the comet.
We have to stop the tentacle monster. And in the end, the film is all about connection. Come on, this camera just fell.
She just came of age. Beautiful choir
A
music.
true coming of age story.
Yeah,
Yes.
a coming of age story, and then of age is in brackets.
A coming story.
A coming
Let's see if Japan reacts better to that than they did the earthquakes.
They probably would.
It's just lots of Japanese businessmen in the cinemas.
This film was excellent.
Sophie, did we ever get a final answer from you?
Nope, not
And
yet.
you're not going to.
No. We kind of insist also.
This is like asking the, what's your favorite Straw Hat question? Oh, I can't choose. It's all of them. I fall asleep through all of their backstories.
They're all so good. I love all of them.
They're also good, but I just fell asleep. I swear I love it.
In Sophie's defense, you have like 3 jobs. So by the time it's nighttime and we're seeing a movie, you are probably absolutely exhausted.
That is very true. Also, on that particular day, I was in a very big frenzy because my application to get admitted as a lawyer was due the
Oh,
next
yeah.
day. And by that point...
And you submitted it in my office.
By that point, I had been rejected like 3 times for the most smallest pedantic issues, and I kept having to go back, and because it was like electronic signature, there were all of these file formatting things that I couldn't get right. And so yeah, like Liam said, I literally submitted, I think like 5 p.m. and because they take up to 2 business days to actually let me know if it's approved or not. And if I don't get it approved, it means I have to wait yet another month to get admitted. So I was in high pressure situation, and then once that went through, I was just sort of like
You got to my office, and the first thing you said to me was just like, Liam, I need to use your computer, bye.
because I was doing it on my laptop on the way to your office. But as I was doing it, because I have there's a problem between like Mac and Windows, and I needed a Mac, whereas my laptop was a Windows. So yes, I did require your Mac immediately.
Commandeered, yes.
But it went through.
I was going to ask.
They haven't given me a hard confirmation yet.
Oh.
But they have given me a tentative confirmation. My police check has gone back clear.
Oh, so they didn't find the stuff. That's good. You covered well.
Yeah. Delete that.
We were talking about this in the car on the way. Was it on the way there or on the way back? You had to like disclose anything that would be potentially troublesome for a lawyer. Turns out Sophie didn't disclose anything. Any of the troublesome things she's done.
I did. I disclosed my parking fines.
You didn't disclose your protesting and your civil disobedience.
I think lawyers have to practice critical thinking and have to be very civic minded. So I don't think there are things I have to disclose. I was just doing my part of the community.
Mm-hmm. Spoken like a true lawyer.
Right, that's what I think.
True politician.
So at this moment, you're not a confirmed lawyer. You're like a semi-lawyer.
There is a word for it, a paralegal.
I prefer
It's
semi-lawyer.
been the word that I've been going by for as long as I've known you, Liam. Paralegal.
But as soon as you get this confirmation back, you're like, Sophie, lawyer, printed on a business card.
You are admitted to the supreme role, but then you have to get another practicing certificate if you want to practice as a lawyer. There are like all of these hoops. And this is probably on me because I didn't do my research before signing up to law school. But I shit you not, when I chose to go and get a Bachelor of Laws in my year 12, I did not know that after I go through the 5 years of university, I also have to do another graduate diploma and then have to go through an admission process and then have to also get my practicing certificate. I had no idea that they had all of these layers and hoops. It was a big shock to me when I found out, like, wait, I'm not a lawyer yet, but I just studied for 5 years.
In between getting your thing fully approved and getting your practicing certificate, what is it that you can actually do?
You can't practice.
So you can't do anything.
No, you're not allowed to. You can't actually.
Oh, wow.
So even once you're a lawyer, you still can't lawyer.
So no, I can't give like legal advice or anything. And even after I get my practicing certificate, I'm only on a supervised practicing certificate for 2 years because I have to be supervised for full time. So for me, it's going to take even longer because I work like different jobs. But you can't actually practice on your own, and you always have to do it under supervision of someone who has a full practicing certificate. And that does make sense because like you have a lot of responsibilities.
It's like being a lawyer on your P's.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm on my green peas.
Then red, and then eventually you'll get a full license. Or...
No. I feel like red's passed now. I feel like that's the admission process, and because Liam, you have a driver's license. It's red peas and then green peas.
No, I don't. I've only ever made it to learners. I don't know which is the order, red or pea. I've never needed to.
I thought you could drive. I had no idea that you didn't have a full.
I can drive. Technically, I can drive. If you put me in a car, I can drive it, but I'm not licensed to.
Right.
POV, you're me. Maybe you are me. Because I've lived in Sydney my entire life fairly centrally. Except for those 3 years I was in Wagga, but we don't talk about that. I've never really needed to drive. To this day, I still have no real need to drive.
I think that's what people think if they're not drivers. As soon as you start driving, having to catch public transport or relying on, I don't know, like Ubers or whatever.
But I don't go anywhere.
Becomes terribly annoying. I mean, yes, you go to your office and that's walking distance, so that's fine.
I think you're just used to the convenience of the car. Life functioned before car.
For example, what about when we went to the movies the other day and I specifically chose a cinema? very far from you, so you could probably get there.
In awkward public transport range, Broadway, yes, I will say. Well,
Exactly.
in that case, you, as the person who chose the cinema, gets to drive me.
Which is what happened.
Yeah, this is still pretty fine for me.
I don't know. I think in Sydney, if you don't drive, it's very difficult to get around. Unless you're living like smack bang in the middle of the city, we have terrible public transport.
I completely disagree. If you're living in Sydney, you don't need to drive. There are a few awkward places that you probably shouldn't live if you're not driving.
No. If you're centrally located in the city, then
Or
yes.
surrounding Sydney. I've done it. I am a 33-year-old man. I've lived. I'm doing it now.
But you live much closer to the city than a lot of other people would. Sydney's very expensive to live that close to the city. And so if you live anywhere, let's say
Very
like...
expensive to own a car.
It is also very expensive to own a car, yes. Actually, what I've been considering is getting rid of my car and just using like one of those hire cars so
Like a
that
Go-Get.
and have a hire like a Go-Get and have a hire car account so that I can just use it when I need to, because owning a car is very expensive.
It's shockingly expensive. I've owned a car. I wasn't legally allowed to drive it, but I've owned one. My wife drove it. They add up. Like the petrol,
really do add up.
the registration, the insurance. It's such a massive pain.
Yeah, I did miss that entire conversation because the Amazon person kept calling me like 3 times in a row and just like, I can't get into. Oh, now I'm in the building. I was like, great, thanks for calling me. I guess. Thanks for nothing.
So what sex toy did you get?
Omega Braider 9000.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That is.
Latest model?
Yeah, of course.
That's a 9000, yeah.
All that YouTube money,
yeah.
man.
Of course, I had like the old one, but I did want to get the new one too.
Yeah,
That's what
I mean, the
felt.
8000, it is getting a bit, how they
Does
sort of
the job,
built
but
in
you know.
technology to fail. It's like Apple.
I mean, like, why
you need the new
take
one.
that? Right, if you can have the new one, why not do it, is what I feel.
That's what I thought. When's your review coming out?
Dude, that's a good question. Like, I have to test it thoroughly first, of course, before I can
course.
do anything.
Why don't you just do a reaction?
Don't want a lazy reaction.
Why don't you do
Live reaction.
Yeah, just do it on stream.
Oh, yeah. I'll do that. I'll consider it.
I've not considered reaction content. This is like a super content because it's an unboxing and a reaction.
And then a review.
Yeah.
Followed very swiftly afterwards.
The beginning of my OnlyFans career.
I actually think you could make a decent amount on OnlyFans. I think you've got an audience big enough that there are a sizable amount of people who would pay money to see that reaction.
The fact that you're not the first person to seriously tell me that kind of worries me.
Mom, you should just give up on this YouTube game. It's not for you. Your future is in OnlyFans.
OnlyFans is very lucrative.
It is.
Oh, yeah. I don't
Definitely
doubt
is.
it is.
If you have a couple of hundred fans, that's a career.
But I feel like it's a bit too late to get into it.
No.
I don't know. I keep seeing news about how they keep tightening up their securities and all of the legal stuff that you need to go through.
I don't think it's too late. If you've got a following,
That's true.
it's potentially worthwhile.
That is true.
If you're starting from zero, probably not a great idea. But any one of
I
us.
would agree.
In fact, all 3 of us should start an OnlyFans and have a race to see who can get to a certain
Who
number.
can get there first?
I feel like Sophie might win.
No, I've got the smallest base following, and I'd have to compete with you guys. Do you see the type of comments you two get?
Sometimes. I saw the comments I got when I first started growing a beard, and the amount of people who started calling me daddy do give me a bit of faith that something like this could work.
Maybe I should grow a beard.
Maybe. It does change people's perspective on you. I can confirm. I now refer to those beardless days as pre-time skip Liam.
It's when Liam learned hockey and everything changed.
I mean, I do concur that whenever I see either of you two with a beard or like very closely shaved, I feel like, oh, okay, they're back in high school. When did Liam go back to being a teenager?
When did Liam regress 20 years? Yeah.
I de-aged like 10 years as well without a beard.
It's pretty bad. I see myself and I'm like, ooh, you probably look like you're in high school.
Like, I'm that age now where I feel like, because I'm still in my, like, mid-20s, I'd say.
You'd say. It's not
And
something you get to
people-
choose.
He's like holding on to it. I think he's moving out of the mid-20s, but he's like...
That's
Just
not
desperately
the point
trying
of
to
what
cling
I'm
on.
trying to
Say
say
I-
here. But yeah,
Old.
like, people keep thinking I'm like mid-30s, which it kind of stopped being a compliment at some point, if that makes sense.
But you are in Japan, so I think that heavily skews the perception.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I don't think anyone has ever accused me of being in my 30s.
Because it's just the truth. So it wouldn't be an accusation, it would just be a statement.
I don't think anyone's ever made that statement. People tend to guess around like 27, 28
40s?
these days.
Really?
Wow.
Right now?
Wow.
That's 50? It can't be 6.
You look way too old to be 30.
Damn! Have you guys seen that video of Kevin Hart and Don Cheadle? When Don Cheadle
have
tells
not.
Kevin Hart his age, it's like, damn!
Oh, I might have seen that actually. I think I've seen that, yeah.
It does remind me though, there is a TV trope, I believe, called Growing the Beard, which is where a character starts clean shaven in season 1. And then by like seasons 2 or 3, they've grown a beard and they've like grown into the character.
It's like Thor, and then you start clean shaven, and then he suddenly gets, when he
Yeah.
gets the massive beard. Yeah.
That's a good example of growing the beard, yeah.
And then he shaves it again when he overcomes his negative critical phase, I guess. That is definitely a trope. I can totally see that.
Maybe that's the key to me finding success on YouTube, is to actually find
Grow a beard.
and grow a beard. And so I'm fully comfortable in my skin and I can embrace my YouTube career.
It's like forcible character development. You grow the beard and the development comes along
You
with
do
it.
get wiser.
Because you get wiser. The beard means that you've gone through some hard times. Look at that rugged face, not clean shaven anymore.
With great beard comes great responsibility.
Can confirm.
Manu, what is your ideal beard length?
The way I have it right now, I'd say I'm fairly happy with it.
Because you have had it much longer in the past, as have I.
That is true, but I don't know. I feel like it's at a fairly decent length right now. I feel like this is nice. I feel like too long and I'll kind of be banished from Japanese society, but then I wouldn't want it like too much shorter. Like I usually trim it down to like a certain, like maybe what is it, like 6 millimeters or something, and then I just let it grow to like roughly like a little bit more than this, and then it comes back off is the way I do it.
To keep this length, I have to shave roughly once every 3 days.
But that's quite short.
I do it
That's
like
quite
once every
trimmed.
week or so.
Yes, it's quite short.
I do remember there was a period, Liam, when you were growing it much longer and your YouTube comments were just like, has Liam's wife left him? He's going through some rough times.
That's what I mean by, growing the beard signifies rough times. Like, that was my development arc. That was nothing bad was
Liam's
happening behind the
respectable.
scenes, but it just looked like it was.
It looked like things were going downhill.
I will say, my wife would not a big fan of the bigger beard. Still not particularly a big fan of this beard as well, either.
Well, I guess it makes sense because she's known you significantly longer than any of us have. So for her, it must still be like a relatively recent change. It's sort of like, I don't know if any of you guys ever had a science teacher teach the history of humanity in the same way. Like, I remember distinctly in primary school, a science teacher got a roll of toilet paper and just like unraveled the roll like continuously and then went, okay, so like this is like the history of the earth, and do you see this pocket? Do you see this square? That is how long humans have occupied the
Yeah.
earth. So like that must be what it feels like for Chantel. It's like she's known you for this whole roll of toilet paper, and it's only this like square that she's seen you with the beard.
That is how I describe our relationship, as a roll of toilet paper. Chantel is on board with the aesthetics of the beard, less on board with the tactileness of the beard, is where I would say the
okay.
problem is, yes.
Doesn't it make it worse if it's shorter though? Because it's a bit pricklier. Like once it's like a little longer, it's like smoother.
Only if it's freshly shaven. When it's freshly shaven, it's like a cactus. It'll just prick you wherever. After like a day or so, it just softens. Like an erect penis going flaccid. That's what tens of thousands of hairs on my face do, yeah.
After the hanky panky.
Precisely.
Do you guys use like creams to groom?
I don't. I have not seen a need for it because of how short it is.
Yeah.
If it was much longer, you would definitely need to, because it would be the only way to like keep it clean and in order.
I'm not sure about you, Liam, but like I've had it at that length before for sure, where I had to like groom properly.
Where I had to groom.
Is it just the cream or do you have to brush it as well?
I've never had it that long.
That's pretty long.
It's more like trimming a little bit to have it like look even and that stuff. Yeah.
But like after a while, it does become a health concern because the beard is blocking your face and you need to keep washing your face. So you've got to like keep the beard clean as a result.
Did you ever find that you get like acne because of it? Because I've had a fringe, and I remember when I had a fringe, I got more pimples on my forehead.
It was irritating the skin.
Yeah, it was irritating the skin, and I guess it was like oil was getting trapped because of the hair.
Quite a bit of it happened at first. I guess the advantage of growing the beard is that never becomes apparent to people looking.
That's
But
true.
it's long since settled now. I think my face is used to it. But when I first started doing it, it was definitely a shock to the system.
What made both of you guys to decide to start growing a beard?
Laziness at first. Because when I was a smooth lad, I would need to shave pretty much every day to keep that up. When I was a baby face lad. Literally every day, because it would grow back, and not only that, it would grow back unevenly. It's like the moustache would grow in first. Like the morning I shave, by that night, you can already kind of
it's
see
there?
a moustache.
That is
Wow.
very. You have like really good testosterone there.
Thank you.
I will say.
But it meant that every time I needed to record or just go outside to the world, I needed to shave. And I thought, you know what? F it. We're just going to let it grow, and I won't need to do anything. And it'll be fine. And I was wrong about that. Because when you have a beard, you've got to like keep it trimmed. You've got to like keep it at your length. You've got to like do the things. But you need to do it less often. And now I just like how it looks. I think it frames the face a lot better than
Yeah, it looks good.
my naked
Yeah.
pink baby boy face.
No, I can confirm that it does suit you.
I think
Much
so too.
appreciated, Manu and Sophie. And if we go back on episode 1 of this podcast, you will find a high school child that is me.
Are you like pro or like do you prefer men with beard or without beard, Sophie? What's your take? Because I know there's
I
like
thought you were asking me.
yes, Liam. Do you prefer men with or without beard?
You can answer too, Liam.
Well, I like when it tickles my testicles.
I would say I have to agree with that. I like it when it tickles my testicles too.
That's the only correct answer.
It's a nice
Sophie.
sensation, isn't it, Sophie? Yeah.
Going back to Makoto Shinkai, I do have to say I appreciate how often
You tickled my
that's-
testicles during
That's
that
a
film.
trope. Yeah, how much my balls were being tickled throughout Your Name and Suzume. But no, in Your Name, how often, I can't remember, Taki, is it? How often Taki is just like grabbing his boobs every morning when he wakes up? Because I feel like that's so accurate. If I ever woke up as the opposite gender,
It is absolutely accurate. It is the first thing you would do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he does
Especially
it
at
like
that
every
age.
time.
Yeah.
It's also,
even as he's crying.
it's also very relatable.
So let me turn this question back to you guys. Do you guys prefer women with beards or without a beard?
The question you didn't answer, turn it back to us. I see.
Yeah, true. Please answer the question
You've
first.
got to answer at least one question on this episode.
You're very good at evading answers.
I
I
was
will
hoping
say,
you guys
Sophie.
wouldn't pick up on that. I was hoping you wouldn't pick up on that this time round. I'm training to be a politician.
You shouldn't have brought the question back up, and I wouldn't have realized.
I mean, obviously it depends on the face. I think I'd say for both of you, I do prefer the beard. I'd say as long as it's not a overly bushy, wild beard, then I do
Beard.
like the beard. I do like the look of the beard.
Very nice, very nice.
To answer your question,
Yeah, I like my women with beard.
like dwarf women, it's the beards.
I'm almost there. I'm so short.
It's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Where is the beard? That's the question, I guess.
This is what I would look like.
Looks very well kept.
It's a bit wild.
You need more moustache.
So it has to be a beard. You guys don't like the goatee. You don't like the goatee?
I think goatees are very like 90s,
it's a no
early
from my
2000s
end, yeah.
kind of facial hair.
It's definitely a statement.
Remember man buns?
I liked the man bun face. Also, Manu had a man bun face.
That is true. I did have a man bun
Did
face.
you?
That is correct.
That's disturbing news from both of you.
You don't remember that?
You would have fit right in Melbourne,
That is very Australian, I would say.
specifically Melbourne.
Blonde, and then also lifeguard. I met someone while I was skiing in Hakuba in the onsen, and it was like the most. He looked like Thor basically, but like not quite Chris Hemsworth face, but otherwise like the body and the hair and the beard.
Like a budget version, Chris Homsworth.
Yeah. Kevin Hemsworth. And I was like, where you from in Australia, man? He was like, Melbourne. I was like, oh, good for you. I knew it.
I could have guessed that. I was just about to say, when you guys were making the joke about the budget version, there's a thing that we say in Australia where we say like an Aldi version of something.
Oh.
Because Aldi
Is
is
there
a very
Aldi?
cheap supermarket.
Oh, Aldi
yeah, so
exists
Aldi's
in You know that's German,
Aldi
right?
exists in Australia, and no, it's not. It's a German brand.
The supermarket.
Yeah, German supermarkets, and they exist all over Australia.
The brothers who founded it, I think, are like the two richest German, like people living in Germany, as far as I know. 'Cause they just built like an entire empire.
Global empire, evidently.
Really big in English-speaking countries for some reason.
Yeah, because I guess it's like they sell similar food that you would find in our other grocery stores, but at a much cheaper
Discount price.
Significantly.
Doesn't have a great reputation in Germany either.
I thoroughly like Aldi products. I actually think that quality-wise, they're often better.
Better or indistinguishable?
Well, I really like their chocolate.
We put too much emphasis on brand products.
I just find it hilarious though that they will make products look exactly the same as the brand, however, and just call it like something different with just like one letter change.
Here's your bottle of cake and Popsy.
Yeah.
There's like, what's his name? Like Stephen He, the YouTuber, and like his video, he has like this whole series of YouTube videos that are basically all just like fake mock-up Chinese name of brand. It's like Adonis. And we have a bottle of Fanta. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Fanta.
Delicious Fanta. Sophie, along with our bottle of Fanta, do we have any new members we need to shout out?
We have
No. one.
Eric Ratliff. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Eric Ratliff. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on with
Am
me
I
at the
pronouncing
moment,
this right?
So I can't see. I can't see the name properly because my glasses aren't on. I'm just gonna refer to you as Eric. Thank you, Eric. Everyone say thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. We
Thank
apologize
you,
for
Eric.
Sophie.
And we also have someone with a Japanese name. So Manu, I'm gonna need your help with this. I am sending it in our group chat.
A big thank you goes to what?
Is that
Did you
Japanese?
send me? What did you send me there? What is that?
I don't think that's Japanese.
I don't know what
No,
you
I
sent
think it
me.
cut off.
That's
I
like a
think it cut
magic
off.
spell.
Yeah, it is. It's like runes or something.
No, I think it just cut off. I don't know what happened to the. Well, not working.
Thanks
Well,
for
thank you
joining.
to-
Thank you two for joining us. This has just been great, guys. Let's do it same time
What
again
did
next
you
week.
send here? It's like a square of like some runes.
We're gonna figure
like-
this out.
One ring to rule them all.
Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye bye.